My Lord, ladies and gentlemen, it's always a great pleasure to address you in this reception organized by the Conservative Friends of Turkey. I'd like to congratulate the members of the Friends Group for organizing this event under the theme of Turkey-UK business relations and for giving me this opportunity. Last year in Birmingham, they organized a very important and timely panel along the margins of the conference. This year they brought us together in Manchester for this reception. Distinguished guests, I am sure you would agree with me that we are living in an era of unprecedented change. At times, the scope and depth of this change may seem overwhelming. Take Turkey and the UK, for example. We are both faced with historic challenges that are about to bring about fundamental change. When I say change, fundamental political and economic change, I mean, following the EU referendum last year, the UK is now undertaking comprehensive negotiations both on the terms of Brexit and on the UK's future trade relations. In the meantime, we recently had a referendum on constitutional change in Turkey. Currently, work is ongoing regarding the fundamental tenets of a more efficient form of governance. I know that business and investment communities are not great fans of change, especially if we talk about systemic ones. Yet we have a strong case for optimism and reassurance for economic and commercial relations between Turkey and the UK. I share the conviction with you on the basis of three important aspects. First, the foundation of our relations is strong. As allies and strategic partners, we enjoy deep and comprehensive relations. In 2017, we exchanged many high-level visits that culminated in reciprocal visits at the level of prime ministers. We have an impressive track record in our economic relations. As of last year, the bilateral trade between Turkey and the UK exceeded $17 billion. The UK is now the second top destination for Turkish exports. Almost 3,000 British companies are operating in Turkey, and their total investment over the last 15 years is around $10 billion. The UK ranks fourth in terms of FDI stock in Turkey. Sometimes regarding these statistical data, there are different figures you can see. $1 billion difference. And one of my British friends, we all know the reason for that because of taxation and so on, different regulations in the two sides in Turkey and here. So we talk to each other, we say, 1 billion, that's among between France, what's the Second, both Turkey and the UK are willing to and capable of adapting to changing circumstances in view of Brexit. Last year I was asked in the fringe event organized by Conservative Friends of Turkey specifically about our preparations for post-Brexit. And I had said we will jointly evaluate all dimensions of our trade relations and work on innovative solutions that will cater the needs of our economies. This year, I am pleased to announce that Turkey and the UK have indeed established a trade working group to bring together our experts so that they share their analysis and projections. They will consider all available options, including the possibility of signing a free trade agreement. Therefore, I can assure you that Turkey and the UK are taking the necessary steps to avoid any disruption or backsliding in their economic relations. Moreover, we would like to take advantage of arising opportunities in the post-Brexit period. I underline the expression, to take the advantage of arising opportunities in the post-Brexit period. The two trade ministers, His Excellency Nihat Zeybekci and the Right Honorable Liam Fox, have met twice in the last 6 months of 2017 alone. We look forward to welcoming Turkish Economy Minister Zeybekci, to London in November for the Joint Economic and Trade Committee meeting. Let me take this opportunity to invite you all to the business forum that will be organized alongside the visit. Third, the nature of our economic relations is changing to reflect the evolving character of Turkish-British relations. In the post-Brexit era, Turkey and Britain will not simply be buying each other's products. We shall be designing and manufacturing brand new products together. And we will be cooperating to capitalize opportunities in third countries. Let me give you an example from the realm of defense industry cooperation. I don't like the word cooperation, it's partnership rather than cooperation. It goes beyond that. Can you imagine that Turkey and UK are now collaborating in our partners in designing an indigenous fifth generation fighter jet, the TF-X. And I'm pleased to see that this cooperation or this partnership has already led to the formation of new joint ventures between various Turkish and British firms. Ladies and gentlemen, I will keep, upon advice of my lord, very short, but this will be my final message. It is that Turkey and UK have embarked upon a potential success story following the referenda in our countries. I believe that the years ahead will form a new chapter in our ever deepening relations, Turkish and British companies. With strong interest in each other's markets, we will be the backbone of the relations, between post-referendum Turkey and post-Brexit Britain. Thank you all for your interest and participation in this platform. May I invite my dear friend, Lord Balfe'ın.
Thank you.
My Lord.
Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, it seems a long, long time since I first went to Turkey. In fact, I worked it out, 43 years. I went just as the first bridge was being opened over the Bosphorus, and we all know how much has changed since then. I went in, of course, to the European Parliament in 1979, and following the events of 1980, became the rapporteur on Turkey, and there may be other people in the European Parliament who can claim it, but I think I'm probably one of the very few who can claim to have met every president of Turkey from General Evren to the present day. That's quite a record in a way. Very different people. Of course, what we did do in the early 80s was to re-establish the relations. And although there's been difficulties along the way, we've kept them going ever since. And I think it's important that we maintain dialogue, because the basis of our friendship has to be our ability to talk to each other. And we have maintained that. The other point, of course, is that at the Conservative Friends of Turkey, we can reflect that many of the values of the ruling party in Turkey and the ruling party in Britain are reflected, which is a desire basically for change, but for responsible change. You know, one of the things about sorry, one of the things about age is that you can look back a long time. And I well remember in my young days in politics, the British Conservative Party, which I remind you is the oldest political party in the world, was defined by one of our nearly Prime Ministers, R.A. Butler, who said, "Conservatives are not opposed to change, we merely require a higher bar for it to be justified." And I think if you think about that, that's quite sensible, because the Conservative Party in Britain has changed enormously over the years, enormously in my lifetime, in your lifetimes, but it has always had as its fundamental base a respect for conservative values and for moving forward to try and take society with us. And that is what we all have to do today. And that is as much a challenge for Turkey, of course, as it is for Britain. Now, during the summer I was in the TRNC and I met all of the actors there concerned with the recent talks, which sadly haven't succeeded. But let me say, having spent a good time talking to the UN mediator, I think that the government of TRNC and the government of Turkey did as much as they possibly could. The strategy of the Greek Cypriots and of Greece at the end was to try and push the TRNC president, Akinci, into giving concessions which would have guaranteed that he would have lost the referendum to endorse the deal. Bear in mind, there had to be a referendum, and people cannot be humiliated. President Akinci went as far as he possibly could in the light of his understanding of the needs, the desires, and the political realities of his community. And without giving you too many history lessons, I also first knew him about 20 years ago when he became the Minister of Tourism in a government at a time when Ralph Denktash was, of course, president. So I do commend his activity, but also people said, oh, Turkey won't be helpful, Turkey won't do this, Turkey won't do that. I don't think the activities, the actions and the concessions of the Turkish government can be faulted in any way. They went as far as they could and they tried as hard as they could to reach a settlement. And we're now in a position where we have a divided island and we just have to face up to the fact there are two communities, one island, but there are two separate and they have to be regarded as equal communities. Let me just say one or two other things, but not for too long, you'll be pleased to hear. We are looking forward in the British House of Commons to welcoming a Turkish delegation later this year in November, sponsored by the Inter-Parliamentary Union. I am hoping that it will be possible for a group from the all-party group, Friends of Turkey, to go back to Ankara before too long and to meet with our Turkish opposite numbers, not only in the AKP but also in the CHP, because we have to remember that the job of being a friend of Turkey is not being a friend of just part of Turkey, and just as the ambassador has to be the ambassador for all of the Turkish political establishment, and of course to change and to adapt his policies, but within the overall framework of diplomacy, so we need to react and to deal with all of Turkish society. What I would say is that we do have a lot of strains in the relationship at the moment, and there is a limit to the number of members of the middle class that you can safely lock up. I will push it no further than that, I will go no further than that, but I will say that you do need, as a country, to reflect on that, because these are the people who will create the wealth of the country, and these are the people who need to be nurtured. The whole success of the British Conservative Party has actually been on reading the middle class, not the upper class. We have a reputation of being an upper class party, but we haven't been an upper class party for 50 years. We have always actually been a working class and middle class party. If you go back to the foundations of British democracy, you find that the interwar years, and even before that nurturing the middle class, the aspirational class. We are the party of people who want their children to do better than us. We are the party of people who work to leave something in society which is greater than what we inherited in the first place. And it is enormously important that we remember that, because that's why we are Conservatives. That's why we are Conservative Friends of Turkey, and that's why we believe that... I can't sing that tune. But that is fundamentally why we believe that it's important to maintain the dialogue, to maintain the friendship, to build on the friendship, to be critical where necessary, but never to be hostile, and to forget that our fundamental raison d'etre, to use a bit of European language, is to actually make the relationship work and to be understanding on both sides of what's going on. So it's a great pleasure to be here tonight with my old friend the Ambassador and with all of you, and I wish you well for the rest of this conference. Thank you very much.